Shabbat Shalom. Okay, you may be seated. Okay, with a show of hands, who knows exactly, off the top of your head, Jeremiah starting in chapter 1 all the way through chapter 2, verse 28? Anyone know that? No? Okay, cool. We're going to go over it together. So, to make sure we're all on the same page, it starts off with Jeremiah, and they're going through the timeline. They're this is who Jeremiah is. And God is hey, you're going to work for me. You're my prophet. I like you. And then goes on, and he has 2 visions. And the first is, hello? Okay. Sorry, I lost myself for a minute. Is an almond branch. And then the second one is a big pot of boiling water, and it's tilting from the north. And then God is hey, Jeremiah, guess what you're going to do? You're going to go put things in order. And don't be afraid, I'm with you, you're fine. Because Israel at this point had completely turned against God, and they're suffering all these terrible consequences, because that's what happens when you don't go with what God says. It even says that the priests and the prophets and even the rulers were not going to God. They were just doing their own thing, thinking that they'd be fine. They were not. And Israel, because they're nah, we're fine, we got this, they're not ashamed of anything that they've done. They're sitting there thinking that they're in the right. And so God at the end is hey, Israel, you've been relying on all these idols. Rely on them now. Ha! So, if we go back, we have Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. I'm sure everybody knows this verse. It's before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I set you apart. So that goes the same for all of us, because we were all formed by God in our mother's womb, and he knew us then. Even before he did that, he's always known us, and he's always been with us, and he set us apart. We are different. We're not like the world. And then Jeremiah, he gets told by God, he's hey, I can't do this. He's I'm just a little boy. I don't know how to speak. Uh-oh, my bad. And God is no, nuh-uh. That's not an excuse. You're going to do what I do. It's the same thing that Moses did, where Moses was dude, I can't speak. And God was hey, don't worry, I got you. You're fine. Now, it's important to understand that it is commonly thought that Jeremiah would be in his late teens or early 20s, so my age. And God is hey, guess what you're going to do? You got to go put Israel in the place. That would be a little scary, right? Don't want to go up to an entire nation and be what you're doing is wrong. Let me tell you why. I wouldn't want to do that. But God is hey, don't be afraid. I'm on your side. Because what do we have to fear if God is with us, right? There's nothing that can come in between us. He's the most powerful, so there's nothing that can stop us. And then Jeremiah has this vision, and God's hey, what do you see? And Jeremiah's oh, it's an olive branch. Now, this didn't make sense to me, so I had to Google it. And the almond, I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong, I don't know Hebrew, is called shaked, sorry if that's said wrong, which sounds like shoked. So almond sounds like watching. So it's a play on words. And so by doing this, God turned the symbol of an almond branch into a visual pun for God's watchfulness. So now when I see an almond tree, don't know why I keep saying olive, it's going to remind me that God is watching and he's always there. And that's really nice to know. Plus, in Israel, the almond tree blooms first. And it signifies alertness and awakening and readiness, because that's always how God is. He's always watching over us. He's always ready to go. And we got to be ready. And it also, he says that he's going to fulfill his word, because God doesn't turn his back on any of his promises. All of his promises are still for us, totally applicable. God never doesn't keep his word. And then he asked him again, he's hey, Jeremiah, what do you see now? And he's oh, it's a boiling pot tilting away from the north. Weird, right? Because who wants a boiling pot of water? Think about it. You got hot, scalding water coming down. That hurts. And it's coming away from the north because there's all these kingdoms in the north that didn't really like him, didn't like Israel. And so God's hey, well, Israel's been not with me. They got to be punished. So is that going to happen? Kingdoms in the north are coming down. But don't worry, it's not all bad, because God is like, no, I'm still with you. You're not going to completely lose. I've got you. Because even though life gets tough, we're still going to end up on top. And then you get to chapter 2, which is a little bit like, I don't know, it's not as happy as the first part. And God is like, hey, you guys were supposed to be completely committed to me. You're supposed to be priests and my prophets. You're supposed to be like the first fruits of the harvest. You were my people, and I wanted you, but you completely turned your back on me. And he's like, you guys, you felt a catastrophe, because if you're not with me, then you're against me. It's a problem. Don't do that. And he's like, what fault did your fathers find in me that you went away from me? Which, to me, it's like, oh, we have the future generations coming up. I mean, they all walked out that door. If we find a fault in God, monkey see, monkey do. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, right. God's not completely good now. Uh-oh, I'm going to turn away. And that's not good, because now our next generation is turned away. And then just starts a never-ending cycle until eventually someone stops it and goes back to God. So we have to stay with God so that we don't end up having generations of rebellion. And then, like, the priests were asking, where is he? Like, they're, like, struggling. They're not like, hey, where'd God go? They're just like, oh, guess he left us. They don't even, it says that the Torah experts do not know him. So the ones who completely studied the word, just like the Pharisees did not recognize Jesus, even though they studied stuff all the time and totally should have, the priests did it again. Like, history just repeats itself. It's not good. And then the prophets did not prophesy for God. Said they turned to Baal, and they were like, hey, we'll work for you now. Even though Baal isn't real, guys. It's a name. It's maybe a statue here or there. It's not real. Why would you do that? You can't get words from someone who's not a thing. It's not Toy Story, guys. It's not real. Your toys are going to come to life and tell you stuff. That's not how it works. And then God's like, come on, guys. He's like, I'm going to contend with your children's children. Like, I'm going to keep fighting for them. I'm not going to let them keep walking this way. Because our actions do affect the future generations, but God is not going to let us just walk away. That's bad. He wants us to be with him. And he's like, and then in chapter 2, verse 13, he's talking about Israel, and he says that they have forsaken me, the spring of living water. And if you go into John, both in chapter 4 and chapter 7, you have two stories where Jesus talks about the spring of living water. You have one with Jesus and the Samaritan woman, where he's like, yeah, if you drink this water, you're going to become thirsty again. But if you come to me, I'll give you living water, and you'll never thirst again. And she's like, what? That's confusing. And then later on, he's at the Feast of Tabernacles, and he's like, hey, guess what? This living water, yeah, that's the Holy Spirit. Because if we go to him, we get the Holy Spirit, and then he's always with us, and what more do we want, right? And then God goes on, he's like, hey, Israel's done all these things, and it's not working for them, it's actually working against them. Like, the rebellion is working for this. Like, the false prophecy is not helping them, it's harming them. All these actions that aren't for God are not going to help you, they're going to hurt you. So why would you do them? And he's like, in Israel, man, they only care about me when they're in trouble. They get stuck in a rut, and they're like, hey, help me. They don't come to me any other time. They're not offering me sacrifices. They're not helping me. I want a relationship with them, which is the same for today. He doesn't want us to just be like, oh, man, times are really hard. Well, hey, God, some help? He wants us to be like, hey, guess what? Today was a great day. I did this, this, and this. Thank you for that. That was amazing. And he wants to have an actual relationship with us. He doesn't just want us to use him as like a supernatural vending machine where we are like, hey, pray to you. Coin in. Now, give me my money. Like, whatever you want. That's not how God works. God needs a working relationship with us. He's alive. I mean, you wouldn't go to, like, your parent and just, I don't know, ask them for a house, right? That's ridiculous, unless you have a working relationship with them. If you don't talk to them for 20 years and then you just, you're homeless and you're like, hey, can you buy me a house, please? They're not going to buy you a house. That's ridiculous. why do you think God would do the same thing if he's supposed to be our Father? You need to have a working relationship or else it's not going to work. So yeah, there you go.